Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Hopeful Conversations. I am Vicky Montague, and today I'm joined by Jan Harte, a very dear friend of mine who,
Hello.
hello, has been on this journey, I guess, of exploring the three principles with me. We both did the A Little Piece of Mind practitioner training together, and we
Good.
both finished that nearly a year ago. And so yeah, so it's been a lovely time when I've really got to know her, and we've had some amazing conversations, and we haven't recorded them. So I
I
thought it
know.
was about time
Hit
that
the
we
record
actually,
button.
yeah, that we actually recorded a conversation. And Jan has got some amazing things to share, really incredibly hopeful stories around her health, um, things that she's seen and things that she's seeing ongoing on an ongoing basis, I guess. And we've
Yeah.
no idea what we're actually talking about today, so
No.
we're just gonna see what
We'll
comes
see
up.
where it goes.
Yeah, because there's kind of loads of stuff, isn't there? Really.
There is. It's all tied up together, but yeah, it's got lots of different threads and strands and yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to hand over to you, Jan, to
Yeah.
decide where you
Wow.
want to what you want to share.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm in awe of so much of it myself. I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
um, yeah, I suppose I go back. I go back a bit
Mm.
to start um, because the journey that's kind of brought me to where I am now has been a lifelong one. But in and when I say that, what I mean is I've been a spiritual seeker and I've been into personal development for as long as I was able to read, I think, and knew it existed. So, but yeah, and it was all done from an energy of seeking
Mm.
because I didn't feel like I didn't feel safe in the world,
Mm.
and I didn't feel like I mattered, and I didn't feel like I was good enough for anything. I didn't seem to measure up anywhere I looked, and so I felt very unsafe and
Mm.
very alone in my life. Uh, but anyway, so roll on, and I because of that, I guess I became a chronic doer.
Mm.
That
Fun.
was how I dealt with my sense of lack
Mhm.
or that big hole that I felt inside me that just nothing seemed to fill. I tried to fill myself up with doing and trying to be good enough and trying to climb the career ladder and trying to have a good marriage and trying to be a good mother and a good daughter and a good sister and a good friend.
Yep. Yep.
And lived in my head,
Mm.
really, not in my life. So, and I know there's lots of people that would say, their life looked fine on the outside, but it didn't feel like that on the inside. And I'm one of those
Yep. So.
because I fell into all the trappings of society and culture and expectations, and tried to be a superhuman
Mm.
and live my life as a superhuman. Um, and all it did was make me sick. And I turned into somebody I didn't even recognize anymore and somebody I didn't like. And I saw myself showing up in my life, behaving in certain ways, doing certain things. Um, and I didn't like what I saw. And I got a real sense that I couldn't find the energy of Jan anymore. Like when I looked back to who I was as a young child, and I just couldn't connect with that energy. And it felt like I was the image I had in my head, Vicky, was, when you go into a hospital and somebody is hooked up to all the machines and the line is going up and down and up and down and up and down. I felt like I was living like that. I was flat.
Yeah.
There was no sense of life in me. There was no sense of enthusiasm or joy. Everything just felt heavy and weighed down, like really, really heavy. And in January 2009, I woke up one day and I just knew I couldn't do it anymore. I just knew that I was done.
Wow.
And at that point in time, I had a big mortgage. I had a fancy career and all the lifestyle trappings to go with it. My husband was a stay-at-home dad because that was a choice we had made because I was earning enough money that one of us could stay home.
Mm.
And then I had to break it to him that I couldn't do it anymore. And a lot of people said to me that that must have been a really courageous thing to do. But it wasn't. It wasn't courageous. I was done.
Mm-hmm.
I had just been diagnosed with my third autoimmune disorder and had been given the news that I now had to start injecting myself.
Gosh. So
And
what? You said it was the third. Just out of interest, what were they?
Graves' disease was the first one.
Mm.
The second one was rheumatoid arthritis was the third one, and the second one was fibromyalgia.
Wow.
And I remember when I was diagnosed with the fibromyalgia, the consultant said to me, "Oh yeah, you have Graves' disease. That's an autoimmune. So is this. They travel in families. It's not unexpected." So then when the third one arrived, that wasn't unexpected to the doctors either. And a fourth one came later.
Wow.
So, but the third one, just something inside me just went, no, just no. And I quit my job. And it was really funny how it happened because the same week that I had told my husband I couldn't do it anymore, thankfully he was completely supportive. I was very, very lucky that he was, and I'm very grateful that he was. And that week I was at work and I was in a meeting with the MD. I was a director in the company at the time, and we were talking and making plans for the upcoming year. Mm-hmm. And I guess we could have called it a goal setting session, where we were signing off on what Jen was going to be doing. Yeah. And the words just came out of my mouth that that's not a fit for me. Nothing that's in that plan is for me. And it looked to me like I was coming off of a major project, and it looked to me like what was on the page was the company was trying to create a job for me because now I was coming off this major project, and what were they going to do with me, kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. And may or may not have been, but that's how it looked to me.
Yeah.
And I just said, no, I said, I don't, it just doesn't look right and it doesn't feel right. And I'm sorry, but I don't think I can sign up for that. Mm-hmm. And again, I was very lucky because it took a number of weeks, but several weeks later, the company had come back with 2 or 3 different offers of different positions. And I just didn't want any of them.
Wow.
But what was different, I suppose, was I wouldn't have said anything before. I'd have gone into the meeting with the MD and signed up for the goals and just kept going.
Mm-hmm.
But something inside me had just snapped or woken up or something.
Yeah.
And a few weeks later, the company came back and offered me a package, a severance package.
Wow.
Which was the best possible thing that could have happened. And so I took it. I wasn't going to look a gift horse in the mouth, so I took that. And that gave us as a family some breathing space. Because there was, I needed to figure out what was going on with myself. And I started therapy at that point in time. And I remember saying to the counselor the very first day I went in, she asked me what brought me there. And I said, I can't find myself. I just can't. I just don't know who I am. And I look in the mirror and I don't like what I see. And I don't like what I stand for. And I don't know how to be me anymore. I had compromised myself so much over the years. You know, trying to please everybody, live up to all the expectations, you know, the rumination, the worrying, the planning, the overthinking, you know, it was just, my mind was just going endlessly. And what I later saw was that all that busy-minded and shook-up thinking had set off a pattern of inflammation in my body. Mm. And the more I pushed, the more my body became worn down. And it was like I saw suddenly at one point that I was doing it to myself.
Wow.
And that was before I came to the three principles. But at that point, I started then training to be a coach and thinking, you know, I go down that road. And I'll be honest with you, what attracted me about coaching was somebody said to me, well, a coach doesn't have to have any answers.
Absolutely.
The coach doesn't have to know anything. You just have to learn how to be with people and ask the questions and be a good coach. And that just seemed like so attractive to me. Mm-hmm. Because I had spent my whole life thinking I had to have the answers to everything and be the answer to everything. So that sent me down there. And then I started doing CBT and NLP and EFT and IET. It was still all coming from the energy of, I've given up my job and now I got to figure this out. Mm-hmm. So I dropped one set of work and picked up a whole other set of work to go and fix myself. It really ramped up big time. And I got lost again. And I did that for a number of years until I came across this. I think it was 2017 when I first came across the three principles. And it was when I started to understand how we create our experience from the inside out. And what I saw, I suppose, really, Vicky, was that everything that I had been learning in the previous few years was all dealing with thought once thought was here.
Yeah.
So CBT was examining your thoughts, NLP was manipulating your thoughts, yeah. IET was doing something energetically with them, but it was all to do something with them or change them or, all to make yourself feel better.
Yeah.
And I guess what I really saw with the three principles was that everything that I had been looking for was in that space before thought. And that's what I had been looking for. And that was the Jan that I thought I couldn't find and that I couldn't reconnect with. But that I had spent, even after walking away from the big corporate job, I had gone straight into my head to try and figure it out. What's the next job for me? What's the next career for me? How do I make myself good enough to work for myself, to put myself out there? And again, back into all the fixing, but it all had to be done in here. And when I realized that it wasn't up to me and that I'm not on my own, I think the three principles helped me really see and understand for the first time in a very long time that I'm not alone, that I am safe, and that I am enough. Because that space before thought is the essence of who we all are. And that's where peace and love and clarity, that space of no thought. And I've come to have a real appreciation for that and built a relationship with it, I guess. And as a result, life's just easier. And I still have all the labels of all those conditions, but I don't take any medication anymore and I don't have any symptoms anymore. But I lie. I take one pill for one of them. And I don't go around striving anymore and pushing myself. And I don't feel sick inside anymore. You know, I mean, when my head was going all day, every day, and it felt like it was, and I'm sure it probably wasn't all the time, but it felt like it was. I just felt so tight, so contracted. Yeah, I couldn't think clearly. I was muddled in my head. I couldn't sleep. You know, I was dragging myself around. I had no energy. And now it's just like I still do the same work. I don't work for a company anymore. I work for myself, but I still do the same work. And I still survived. I still live in the same house. You know, the mortgage got paid, and the children grew up, and they went to college, and you know, it happened. And I didn't have to be putting myself in an early grave, essentially, to make that happen. And even though I'm not running around now like a crazy woman trying to be all things to all people, my family still love me. My friends are still around. You know, my outside life hasn't changed. What's changed is me. But I can look in the mirror now and I can smile and I can like the person that's coming back at me. They're looking back at me. But I also have a greater appreciation for what I went through. And I used to really berate myself and beat myself up when I was living that life because I just couldn't stack up. And now I see the innocent misunderstanding of it all. Whereas I used to be so judgy of myself and everybody else. And now I just really see that everybody is doing the best that they can. And the other big insight out of all of it was that all of those physical symptoms that I had and all of those conditions that I had, they were there to serve me.
Yeah.
Because if I hadn't had them, I wouldn't have taken this journey.
Wow. So would you say that it was like the diagnosis of the third one that made you kind of sort of sit up and question on earth that was about?
It's like, what's going on here? I was like, you know, this doesn't make any sense to me. Like, and I was looking around and nobody else that was doing what I was doing that I could see anyway was suffering in the same way that I was. You know, the people that sat at the leadership table with me all seemed jolly and lighthearted, and having a good old time. But you know what? I had that face on me too.
Yeah.
I used to do something that I used to call putting on my leadership mental. When I get out of my car in the car park in the morning, I'd put on my leadership mental. And that was my mask.
Wow.
And I wore that all day long. And then when I got in the car to go home, I put on a different one.
Yeah, I feel like,
To live up to all the expectations of when I went home. And when I went to visit my mom, I had a different mask. But I was so afraid to just be me.
yeah.
Because if I was me, it would all be over and everybody would disappear.
Mm.
And I guess when that third diagnosis came, it was kind of, even if I have no money and even if nobody loves me anymore and I can't keep doing this,
Mm.
I just saw some connection between the way I was living my life and the way I was feeling and the conditions that I had. And it was like my life had become really small because there was so much effort and doing and trying to be done that if I was invited to go anywhere, I never went because, first of all, I was too tired.
Yeah.
And second of all, I was spent.
Yeah.
I had nothing to give
Well, it would have meant
because of
putting on another
another
mask.
man. Yeah, yeah. And I guess, maybe on some level I had started to see that in the lead up to
Mm.
that third diagnosis. But when that third one came, and I think it was probably being told I had to inject myself as well, that was a bit of a blow. Um, what the heck? And I knew in the back of my head, Vicky, that I had been hearing for years from everybody around me that I needed to slow down,
Mm.
that I needed to take time off. We'd go on holidays, and my husband would say, "Could you not just bring our old rom-com book, like, or a chick flick or something, a chick flick book, or because I'd bring my personal development books, or
Yeah.
an employment law book, or something that needed to be done." My weekends were spent fixing myself, going on programs and courses and retreats, and to fix myself.
Mm.
And yeah, just the whole thing just kind of, something looked different that day. And I just saw that on some level, what I was hearing in terms of the feedback I was getting from people and these diagnoses and how I was feeling were somehow connected.
Mm.
I didn't know what to do with it.
No. And then you obviously went on a huge journey of trying to find what it was.
Yeah.
And
And
I'm
that
guessing,
journey was about what is the thinking in my head? What is the content of the thinking in my
yeah,
head that's
yeah,
making me do all of these things and behave in this way?
yeah,
Because that's got to be changed.
yeah,
Change your thoughts, change your life.
yeah, yeah. And I'm guessing to a certain extent that those techniques worked, but clearly not for very long, because then you were searching for another one and doing another course on a
Yes,
different technique and a.
they worked. They gave temporary relief,
Mm.
but I realized that one of the things I trained in was NLP, and my sister and I even wrote an NLP book called Stress Less, and we self-published it, and it never actually made it to market, and for a variety of different reasons. But one of the reasons was, if we're both still using all of these techniques on ourselves 10 years down the road, do they really work? Because surely if they were to give you any kind of long-term relief, 10 years of doing them would be enough. But the problem is there's always more thoughts to come up. And as long as you're working with the thought,
Yeah,
it's
that's
always
so
going to work.
that's so interesting, because I trained in NLP as well, and I can distinctly remember kind of coming back after a training weekend and you're right, okay, I've just got to put that critical voice in my big toe. It's fine. I've just got to move it to my big toe and it will be fine because I won't be able to hear it so much and it will
Yeah,
be, or just got to change that critical voice into a clown.
yeah.
Then it won't,
Mickey Mouse.
and it was so much work. And I can remember just thinking, I'm such a failure. I can't do this. Like, I can't make it quiet. How do I make my thinking quiet? I can't turn it down. It's loud. How can I change it into a different? And I just remember getting so kind of like, yeah, this isn't working. Like, I felt for me, it fed into there's definitely something wrong with me because I can't even do
Yeah,
they're telling me this
yeah,
works and I can't even do it.
yeah, yeah. All that. Yeah. So yeah, so it's yeah. I suppose the big one for me was seeing the space before thought. That was huge.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess following on from that, then realizing that as long as I'm alive, there's going to be thoughts in my head, just like there's always going to be clouds in the sky that will come and go. There's going to be thoughts that are come and go, but they're not me. They don't mean anything about me, and I don't have to act on them.
So huge. I remember having that exact same realization that, oh, my thoughts aren't mine. I'd always called them my thoughts and they're not mine. I didn't make them, like they just appeared. And then the fact that I didn't have to listen to them was just unbelievable, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think for people listening who may not have come across the three principles, to even consider that you don't have to believe every thought you have. What if that were true?
yeah.
There's
What if it was?
yeah, and there's so much freedom in that, isn't there? It's like so exciting to just think, oh, what? So I don't have to listen to that voice that's telling me that I'm useless and that I nobody likes me and that whatever else is going on in there. Oh, well, if I stop listening to that, then I'd go out and I'd like go and apply for a really good job or whatever it was
Whatever it is.
that I didn't do because, like you, I had all of that sort of
Yeah,
self doubt.
yeah.
What was going on?
And it's interesting because it's gone now in a number of areas, but it's still there in lots of others.
Mm.
Um, and there's hardly a day or a week goes by that I don't see it somewhere. There's insecure thinking in some area
Yeah.
that pops up. And maybe that's the way it'll always be. But the difference is I don't have to do anything with it. You just see it and you go, oh, another one.
Another one I don't have to listen to.
Yeah, yeah. And it is freeing.
Yeah.
I mean, there's space in my head and in my body that definitely wasn't there before.
Mm.
Like inside of me felt very full, very cluttered.
Mm.
And now it doesn't. It feels spacious a lot of the time.
Wow.
Except when I get lost in my insecure thinking.
Which we all do.
Which we all do. But it's about reading the signs
Yeah.
because I know now, how I feel. If I start feeling tight and cluttered and full again, then it's like, oh, back off. um, but there's no technique to do.
No, and I love that. It's like the whole sort of all the symptoms that you had.
Mm.
We don't appreciate how linked our mind and body are. I mean, I certainly didn't have any appreciation of that my body is a barometer of my thoughts. That my body is only ever giving me feedback on what's going through my mind. And you describe how you were having to wear different masks all the time and you were having to think about what other people wanted you to be and you were having to whatever, all those things that you were talking about, like that, all of that you were feeling in your body and your body was like basically telling you through symptoms that you were just dismissing because you were too busy and it
Yes.
wasn't convenient. You just take more drugs and that was fine, it would sort it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. And Vicky, we all do it. I mean, I remember when I was diagnosed with Graves' disease, it was um, my my eldest son was less than a year old, but for the first 10 months that he was born, I was ill.
Wow.
But we all do this because I kept saying to myself, sure, I've just had a new baby. Like, of course I don't feel good.
Yeah.
Sure, I'm not getting any sleep. Of course I don't feel good. Sure, I'm not eating properly. Of course my stomach isn't right.
Mm.
And you rationalize
Yeah.
all these symptoms. And all that was going on was my body was trying to wake me up to the fact of what kind of thinking I had in my body. I was freaking out as a new mother.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
all was going on.
We learn to ignore that, don't we? Because it's
Yeah,
not convenient.
yeah,
You've got a small baby to look after. You can't
exactly.
sit around
Yeah,
doing nothing.
no. But I wasn't present enough
Mm.
to see that at that point in time.
No.
And if I had, I wouldn't have gotten a second and a third, but I did. And that was my journey. And I wasn't ready to stop until I was ready to stop.
Mm.
Because if I had been willing to listen to the feedback I was getting from people that cared about me, I could have stopped 15 years earlier.
Yeah. But that you can't. That's not how it works, is it? We were talking
No.
before coming on the recording, and it's like that's not how change happens. Like people can tell you stuff, you can read about stuff, but if that's how
Yeah.
change happened, it would be simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'd just read about something and then you'd stop doing it. Like no one would smoke, would they? Because they read
Absolutely.
about how terrible it was for them.
Yeah.
And of course, why would they do it?
Yeah. Yeah. And I would read all these books about, high performers and athletes and executives and all this kind of stuff and how they would, work really hard and play really hard and they'd, go, 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 and then they'd stop for recovery time. And, it looked fine on the page, but it made no sense in my life to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember at one point I was on a program and had an accountability partner and my accountability was downtime, to have some downtime. And I just couldn't do it. So I used to show up and tell this person that, oh yeah, I took the day off on Saturday, but I didn't take the day off. Because the thinking in my head said, you can't stop. You don't get done if you stop. You have to keep going.
Yeah, and that's fascinating, isn't it? Like just to pick that part. It's like whatever we believe, whatever we think, we experience, and then that becomes our experience. So of course, if you've got thinking that's saying, it's I've got to do all the time, I've got to work really hard, I can't take breaks, if I do that stuff's not going to get done, how am I going to get my list complete if I sit and
Yeah.
read the book for half an hour? If you have all of that going on, then obviously it makes no sense to have a rest.
No, no,
Why would you wouldn't. It's
no.
the only way that anything's ever going to change is if you see something different.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's the
And you
only way.
now see that all of that was just thought that didn't need to be paid attention to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And it's that simple. But until you're ready to see it, you're not ready.
No, no. Like you say,
And I was ready intellectually in my head because I was reading all the books, I was
yeah,
going on all the programs, I was, you know, technically doing the right things. But in my head and in my body, there was just this compelled, pushing, rushing, forcing, driven energy to keep doing. And that's what looked real to me, was that I had to keep going.
mm,
It wasn't safe to stop because if I stopped, I might miss a beat.
yeah.
There was daily goals, weekly goals, monthly goals, quarterly goals, biannual goals, annual goals, and KPIs and measurements and milestones.
Yeah, yeah,
God forbid you'd miss one. And I had my wheel of life with my 7 or 8 different areas, and each one of them had a plan. So
I'm
it's
really,
all
for someone listening to this who's, you know, in that place of, and I know lots of people who are sort of stuck in that hamster wheel of, big mortgage, needing to pay bills, in a high pressure job, got health issues, what would you, how do you break out of that? For someone listening now, they'll just be like, yeah, but this all is true and real. So it's all very well you saying, find the space before thought, but what the hell, how does that work?
Yeah. Well, I guess, what happened for me was more, I just hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
That was my rock bottom.
Yeah.
I just couldn't keep going.
Effectively, you had a breakdown. That's what it sounds like. You just literally
Just
couldn't do it.
Couldn't do it. Just couldn't do it. So, but the interesting part, I think, and I didn't know anything about this at the time, this space before thought. But I suppose what I've come to understand, Vicky, is that space before thought is what powers that's our life force. And that's powering life and everything in life, everything in nature and everything in life. And I've come to trust it because it has our back and it shows up in real time, in the moment when you need it. My wisdom showed up that day. I didn't know it was wisdom. I didn't know anything about wisdom. I just knew I was done, but that was my wisdom showing up.
Yeah.
And I suppose what I'd say to people is this understanding is so worth exploring, because once you understand how life works and how we create our life experience from the inside out, and you start to see that we live life in real time, not in the future and not in the past, and we start to trust that this life force has our back, that's what makes the difference. Because it's not all up to you anymore. And you have a trusted friend and advisor and somebody that's always by your side. It's like having a guardian angel whispering in your ear in some ways, but that's where peace lies. And anybody that's struggling with a mortgage and kids and feeling sick and big jobs and doesn't know how to walk away from it. They don't call them golden handcuffs for no reason. There is a way through, and there is a way to live a life where you can follow your heart and do what feels real and true and right for you and still survive and pay your bills. And I don't know what that is for you, and you don't either. And we're not designed to know how it's going to work when we make the decision to go in a certain direction. But when we do make those decisions, life seems to show up, and wisdom seems to show up, and things tend to work out.
Yeah, it's like we become. So I don't know, the way you describe it, it's kind of like, you were living, looking through a telescope almost. Like, these are the things that I have to do. This is where I've got to focus everything. It's really important that I get this right, that I behave like this, that I am like this. This is what it has to look like. Yeah. And it's almost like, you had the realization that there was something else. Like, when we stopped looking down the telescope at all the things that seem to be so urgent and important, that we open up to this, to our wisdom. Like you say, we're all born with an inner guide that gives us direction, that will allow us to move forward in life. But whilst we're looking down the telescope, we can't see it because we're too concentrated.
Yeah. I used to live my life thinking, if it's to be, it's up to me.
Mm.
You know, the only way to get what a life that I want, or to create the things that I want in my life, is for me to go out and work hard and make them happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now, because that's how it looked to me.
Not me.
Now it looks to me like life happens through me and life happens for me. And really all I got to do is be present and listen for the nudges. And as long as I follow the nudges that come from my wisdom, it'll work out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you don't have to try and figure out how to do something, because when you stop trying, then you get an idea.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, you always hear people say, oh, I have my best ideas when I'm out jogging, or when I'm in
Yeah.
the shower, or in the middle of the night I wake up and I know how to do something. It's like, yeah, because your mind's got quiet enough
Yeah.
for you to hear that inner guide.
For me, Vicky, I think the journey has been a lot about the journey of living from my head to living from my heart.
Yeah.
I have a sign up there behind me, follow your heart. Um, that feels a whole lot different than follow your head.
Yeah. And everyone understands that.
Yeah.
Everyone universally understands that. It's like, well, okay, so this is going on. Come out of your head, come into your heart. What do you want to do about it? People understand that.
They do. But I'd have to say, if, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, somebody had talked to me about intuition and, living intuitively, I'd have been laughing at them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas now,
Yeah.
that's the way I live, not every day and not all the time, but more and more.
Mm.
I'm living a life that's true to what makes my heart sing.
Mm.
And what brings me joy, because, as you say, we were all born light-hearted and full of love and joy and curiosity and wonder and playfulness, and that's who we are in our essence.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's the journey of coming home to that, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. However that happens.
Yeah, it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
And nobody can tell anybody else or give anybody else advice, because we all have our own inner guide, as you said.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's
Learning
like,
to listen.
coming back around to your health stuff, you said that now you're only taking one medication.
Yeah.
What do to me it sounds like, in that lessening of busy headedness, your body has responded.
Yeah, because the inflamed thinking isn't as present. So therefore the inflammation in the body and the biological reaction to that sped up, busy mind. As my mind has settled, it seems that the body has settled as well.
Yeah, I mean, I just find that it's obvious now, but it was so not obvious to me before. And there's, like I say, there's little, people have little understanding of the impact, I guess, of their mind to their body. But I would really want to add in there, because that can make it sound like it's your fault that you've got
Yes.
these conditions.
No, nobody's fault.
No, I mean, it's innocent, isn't it? We get caught up in busy headedness or whatever crazy stuff goes through our mind, but it's not because we mean to. It's we don't know there's any other way.
I know one of the first books I read around the three principles was Somebody Should Have Told Us.
No, I love that book.
Me too. And I think, that's just says it all. We just don't know.
Yeah.
Nobody told us.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've been spun conditioning and culturing and, whatever else. But this is the truth of who we are.
Mm. Yeah. That seems like a beautiful ending.
Mm. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming. And can you share with people how they can contact you, how they can work with you, how they can find out more about you, all that kind of stuff?
Sure. I have a website called reconnectwithheart.com, and it's the spelling of my name, Harte. And there's a Facebook page, which is HR with Harte, and we connect with Harte. And there's a private Facebook group if anybody wants to join that. Find that on Facebook as well. That's We Connect with Harte as well. So they're all easy to find. Yeah.
Such beautiful and appropriate name as well for business. I just love it.
I know. I'm so lucky.
Absolutely. It was there all along in just in your surname.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. Queen of Hearts.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Jan. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you. And it's been an absolute pleasure.
We will catch up very soon.
Yes, we will.
All right. Take care.
Take care, darling.
Bye.
Bye-bye.